Good day. My name is Omkar and welcome to Diksha. Today's topic, the Ramayan. Like most people, especially being Hindu, we have heard about the Ramayan, which is one of the two major epics discussed and taught in mainstream Hinduism today. The other being the Mahabharata, which is a highly political text. Today's topic, the Ramayan, I want to cover a couple of points that seem to be glossed over in portraying the story of the Ramayan. And traditionally speaking, the Ramayana goes or tells the story of the divinity of Ram and the accomplishments of Ram. And there are, in my opinion, a couple of key points which, if delved into, has a very profound impact or gives a deeper meaning into what it is exactly. One of those points is the fact that the Ramayan is a prime example or a good example of politics or proper politics or the success story or climb of a political power. The reason being is that if we look at the Ramayan, in the narrative, Ravan, the king of the Rakshas, and Lanka was the superpower at the time. They were the most powerful nation on earth at the time. And how do we know this is simply because one is in the amount of wives that Ravan had, which is said to be over 100, I believe. Now, in politics, especially in warfare and when dealing with kingdoms, what they would do, and I think in Saudi Arabia today it's still done, you marry the princess of a tribe when the tribe is conquered, or you take the wife of a king that you have slain as your wife if the wife is young enough. So what this means is that Ravan had conquered over 100 kingdoms as compared to Dashrath, who had 3 wives. So Dashrath, if we use the amount of wives, had conquered 3 kingdoms. This would explain, which brings me to my second point, this would explain why the kings of the Ramayan had more than one wife. Dashrath had 3, and Ravan, as I mentioned, had over 100, meaning that for political reasons, they married multiple times. As I mentioned, this is still done today, especially in the Muslim religion and in Saudi Arabia. And it is the main reason, and probably the only reason behind the system. We often hear people referring to the fact that Dashrath had 3 wives and wondering why, and I've never really heard it mentioned before, so I thought I'd bring that up. Now, so in terms of being a political text, the Ramayan demonstrates that Ravan, being the superpower, had underestimated his enemy, which was Ram. Now, also, what had happened, Ram, being the king at the time of Ayodhya, was greatly insulted by his wife or queen being kidnapped and challenged, and he needed to respond. I know the popular theories put forward is that it was an act of lust of Ravan, but politically speaking, it was a challenge. It goes to show how good Ram was as a king, living in a straw hut in the forest in exile, that he was able to put together with his skill of negotiation and political maneuvering, was able to put together an army and win the favor of two kings. I don't have the name of the kings, but I know it's the king of the monkeys and the king of the bears. Now, under his own intellect, his own wisdom, he was able to form these bonds, establish an army, and defeat the superpower of that time, which in itself is a magnanimous accomplishment. It is something that, even by today's standards, would be close to impossible. And this goes to demonstrate the greatness of Ram in a political sense. And I really believe if we were to study the methodology, the thinking, or the way that Ram maneuvered, it would give us an insight into what could work when approaching an insurmountable task. And on the flip side, if we look at Ravan's end of the spectrum, which the superpower of the time, he underestimated his enemy, as well as made errors that cost him not only his life, but the position of his kingdom. So not so much as being a story of the triumph of good over evil, I think it really points to it is unwise to overestimate oneself based on the prowess we have and to underestimate the enemy. And on the flip side, it is good to be in full control and have mastery over the skills which we have, so that even in a situation where we have nothing, we are able to pull miracles off and to pull miraculous and unsurmountable tasks through. So those are the two little points I have about the Ramayana that I wish would be discussed, because I myself am not somebody who is versed in scripture, but it is really, I find it fascinating that these men of the time, everything that they did, were able to achieve their respective tasks. And there you have it, my proposal on how the Ramayana is as much a key political text as it is a mythological text. My name is Omkar and you are watching Diksha. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.